So today I want to talk to you about my personal favourite 3 people skills for people to develop as both new major incident managers, but also for the really seasoned, experienced people to master. Hello and welcome. I'm Adam Norman, the CEO here at MIM, the professional body for IT major incident management. We deliver the global best practice in IT major incident management to clients in around 90 countries. So today I want to talk to you about my personal favourite 3 people skills for people to develop as both new major incident managers, but also for the really seasoned, experienced people to master. Here goes. Number 1, psychometric profiling. Now, some of you will be very familiar with psychometric profiling. Those in the corporate world, it's not uncommon to have come across various frameworks. The truth is there are good and bad frameworks. There are ones which are very much rooted in clinical psychology, have been developed from hundreds of thousands of study and analysis on people and then have been refined. And there are ones which aren't so great. So your experiences may vary. Psychometric profiling for major incident management is really valuable. If we think about the role, it's mostly communication and leadership if we're doing it properly. So therefore, being able to understand others, their personality types and our own types is really, really important. So psychometric profiling, there are actually 2 types. So there's aptitude tests and there are personality tests. Aptitude tests are testing a person's ability in a given area of competence. We're more concerned with personality tests. So we use the DISC framework, and that's from Wiley & Sons. It's excellent. We've used this for many years now. We have used something called Myers-Briggs before, which some of you will be aware of. Myers-Briggs is very, very good, but for our purposes as major incident managers, we want to be able to take something and apply it very quickly. My feeling was that Myers-Briggs was too complex for somebody to learn in, say, a 2-day course and to be able to apply efficiently back in the operation. Whereas somebody who had a lot more time to dive into something like Myers-Briggs, I think it's still very valuable and excellent. But for our purposes, we moved to the DISC framework. And the DISC framework is taught in a way that it is simple enough that a person can pick it up in a number of hours, at least the 4 core personality types, and they can go back to the operation and with a fairly high degree of accuracy start making assumptions about people's personality types. So for example, myself and the trainers, we could spend several hours, and by the end of teaching a few hours of this, on, let's say, celebrities, so people we all know, people will get about, give or take, 70% degree of accuracy at guessing people's personality types if they stick to the 4 core types, just to keep it simple. Now, why does that matter? Think about all of the people you engage with as a major incident professional. If, first of all, you don't understand how you personally interpret information or see the world, or your own stressors and motivators and the things that drive you, it's very difficult to understand anyone else's or to think about your own behaviour or affect your own behaviour, both the good and bad parts of it. If you then combine that with understanding others who have a different personality type to you, that they have different goals, wants, needs, different stressors, and will react differently in different situations, it's very hard for you as the major incident manager to be able to effectively support them, to maximise collaboration, to instill confidence if they're a stakeholder. So really, psychometric profiling is very, very powerful for us understanding the different views that people have and the different goals. So just to give a quick example, we do have, for all the things I'm going to discuss today, for all three of them, there are full videos that are about half an hour long. So if you really want to dive into these topics, you absolutely can. On YouTube, just search for the other videos. But psychometric profiling, a real world example would be, in the DISC framework, there is D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. Now, let's say you have a very skilled major incident manager, and that person, their personality type is S for steadiness. S for steadiness, these people are very analytical, they can be a bit skeptical, which can be very useful, so questioning, and they're very logic focused. Normally very detail oriented. So you find lots of all the reports we've done, you find lots of technical people sit in the S for steadiness personality type or some variant of it. So let's say this major incident manager is doing a great job. They have issued really effective and good concise comms. They have great control on a bridge call of all of the technical resolving group members. Everything is progressing as it should be. A leadership member gives them an individual phone call, or they go and see them in person during the major incident. And they haven't really been following on, but they ask for an update. Now this person is D for dominance in terms of their personality type. Their personality type is about speed, action, and challenge, both of self and others. And we all know people like this. I like to say that these people typically think in bullet points and they make decisions quite quickly. So what happens and what transpires is the major incident manager, who's actually doing a great job, starts to give an update, but because they're much more detail focused and they have not interpreted this other person's personality type and style and tailored their communication to it, is they give everything. This is what we did at the start, this is what's going on, this is who's doing what, all the delegation of actions that's happened. And it's a really long update, it's not concise, but it's still very good and it's very complete. Within about 30 seconds, the member of the leadership team, who's D for dominance and thinks in bullet points very quickly, has switched off and no longer really listening, and they've made a couple of assumptions. They have made the assumption that this person does not have control of the major incident, they don't fully understand what's going on, and they are not confident in what they're saying. Because in their mind, in their personality type, you would give a very short, concise answer, and that's what they expected. And so the major incident manager didn't actually do anything wrong. They've been doing a brilliant job. They've just failed to switch their communication style to the personality type of the person they're engaging with. And all of you will have seen this. And the problem with that is certain things happen. So when stakeholder confidence has issues or is a bit wobbly, there are things that manifest. So they may go and escalate to someone's line management, which pulls in someone else, which perhaps knocks the major incident manager's confidence. They might jump on the bridge call after that and start trying to take control, which naturally again slows down the major incident, causes disruption, and may knock the major incident manager's confidence. They might go direct to technical staff, pulling them off the bridge call and having direct phone calls with them, which means the technical resource that should be there trying to resolve and fix the major incident are no longer available to the wider team. And there's a lot of other things that can happen, but typically those are some core things that happen when stakeholder confidence has taken a bit of a knock. And obviously all of those things slow down the major incident and the velocity, so ultimately more downtime, more cost that's associated with it, potentially reputational damage is expanded if there was any, and legal obligations, if it's time sensitive, could be impacted. So those are all things we don't want to occur, and they've all stemmed not from someone doing the wrong thing, but for us, the leaders as major incident managers, failing to understand that a big part of our role is us as the connector, us as the leader, understanding all the different personality types and what they need and delivering things in the way that they need in order to inspire confidence within all of them and for all of us to work collaboratively really well together. So Psychometric profiling would be number one. I think it's one of the most powerful things that people can work on. And you see complete transformation in relationships, in people's confidence and how they view major incident managers when they really nail this. Number two, critical thinking. Again, we have a very detailed video on critical thinking, so I won't go into too much detail. There's a 30-minute video that you can go into. But if you think about what critical thinking is, so the analysis of facts, evidence and logic to form a judgment, and hopefully a sound judgment, that's really important to us. So everybody needs to have reasonably good critical thinking skills to do well in the world, whatever that may be, when you make decisions about your family or how you're going to spend your time. All of those things ultimately affect our lives and the quality of our lives. But when you think about major incident management, we're in quite a unique situation. If we, as the major incident manager, are leading a group of technical specialists, one would hope, and it is normally the case, each of those technical specialists will know more about their chosen discipline than we do. So what does that mean? That means we are fully reliant on their capability, on their honesty, and as technical as you could get as a major incident manager, you're probably never going to be so good that you understand more than every other technical specialist that may be involved in every major incident that you are running. And I would argue that's a terrible way to become efficient as a major incident manager, because that's not what they need from you anyway. They need your leadership, they need you playing a very different role. But if you as the major incident manager aren't going to necessarily be able to fully understand and comprehend everything that is put across from a technical perspective, how do you make sure that the plans that are proposed, the things that are suggested and the directions that the technical teams send us in are accurate? And this is where critical thinking comes in. So, being able to understand a good and bad argument, an argument not in the sense of two people having a disagreement, but in critical thinking terms, an argument is something that somebody will give you reasons and logic as to believe a thing is true. So how do you understand all the components of that and test the logic to make sure that it is sound? And that's ultimately what we want to do with critical thinking. So you as the major incident manager may not understand technically everything that is occurring, but you should be able to ask some fairly basic questions that cause the technical resolving group members to essentially test their own logic and each other's logic. And if you can cultivate that on your bridge calls, it's really, really powerful. It becomes quite a cultural thing that we sound check. So in its most basic form, if you think about receiving a major incident ticket with a notification that X number of servers are down, do you then mobilize the entire operation? Do you issue comms immediately? And the answer may be yes in some of those circumstances, but I would argue even if you do just for speed, you'll do the same thing retrospectively. You will perform some health checks. So you will make sure that those servers are actually down. They are connected to the infrastructure and users are affected. And so what's interesting about that is that's really standard. We would all do that, you would hope. There's very few people who, whether it's immediately or after issuing a notification, wouldn't actually check that the servers are down. But if they weren't down, and let's say a user couldn't do something, and this does happen, they phone up the service desk and they say, I don't know, I can't access my email, and therefore 7 servers are down. That user may not know this. They may be trying to escalate the incident, or they may have made a mistake. We might mobilise the entire operation for that. We might issue comms, we might put things out publicly on status pages when there was never an issue. And that's a really basic example, but think about what we do on bridge calls. We make decisions and form plans based on the evidence that we have at the time, but we should always be checking that evidence, seeing if there is new evidence, making sure that we are not looking at various things in a biased way, so anchoring bias, taking the first piece of information and sticking with that even though we have new information which perhaps supersedes that and is more important and more valuable. So critical thinking is quite a big topic. There's loads built within it, but essentially it comes down to a premise or multiple premises that support a conclusion and those having sound logic and being true. So it's a really important skill for us to cultivate because we're going to be dependent on that if we're going to support and guide technical people who know lots of things that we do not into the right direction. So number 2 is critical thinking. Number 3, conflict management. Conflict management's a really interesting one because I think most people initially assume we're talking about conflict between them and someone else. And yes, of course, as a major incident manager, I'm sure you've all seen your fair share of disagreements and conflicts with other people. But really, I would suggest where this is most valuable as a major incident professional is you as the leader being able to support 2 technical resolving group members who might be in conflict, or 3 or 4 on a bridge call. And so it's not uncommon for someone from one technical discipline to propose a plan and someone from another to suggest we're headed in the wrong direction. Now, let's say those 2 people who are having conflict are from the 2 separate disciplines that we really need, us as an entire organisation and operation, need to be performing at 100% of their capabilities together in order for us to fix a major incident at speed. The last thing we want is for them to have conflict and people not really be bringing their A game. So one person perhaps has a disagreement with the other on the bridge call, or they feel that the other person has dismissed them, or their ego's hurt, or whatever it may be, the things that happen to all of us when we're in conflict with others. And for one or both of those parties then to be kind of performing at 50% and not really bringing as much effort or energy as we need. Us as the major incident manager, when you get really good at conflict management, you spot the patterns and you understand the options to deal with it. You can look at what is happening and both present solutions and help those people to navigate it in ways that are win-win as opposed to win-lose for anyone, meaning everyone feels good about the solution or how we're going to tackle something. It brings the team together, everyone's energy is still high, we still get speed, there's still good velocity to the major incident. So conflict management is really important, and just like the other 2 in this list, there is a good 30-minute video that goes into the styles of conflict management and the options you have when people are in conflict. So, those are my 3 top people skills for both new major incident managers, but also experienced major incident managers to master. They are the ones that, if you are new to major incident management, as I mentioned at the start of the video, will disproportionately increase your performance versus other things that you could learn, do or build. So I would focus on those 3 things, really understand them, engage in the content, take them back into the operation, apply them and pay attention. So how do people respond when I'm applying these conflict management styles? And take all the feedback from that, anything that doesn't quite go right, anything that does go right, and incorporate that into the next round of experience that you're going to apply. So going back into the operation again, making notes, keeping an eye on what really works for you and your teams, what didn't, and honing that. For those of you that are very experienced major incident professionals, what I would say is mastering these skills, so I'm sure you already either know or have applied these in some form, mastering these, and I really mean mastering, is what will allow you to reach your full potential. If you've ever seen someone who is an incredible, and I don't mean good or great, I mean an incredible major incident professional, they have normally mastered these things, and it's quite spectacular to watch somebody who hasn't stopped at good or great in building those skills, but has continually honed them and really mastered them. Watching them is really quite phenomenal. So if you're an experienced major incident professional, these equally apply. You just master them over a longer period of time. Keep learning, keep reading, keep studying, keep applying. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the list. I hope you've got some value from this. See you next time.